You are watching Co-op for Two. I'm Jesse. I'm here with Greg.
Thanks for having me on the channel.
This is our quick before you buy it for Forbidden Jungle.
And before we get started with our thoughts, let's go down to the table and see how it plays.
In Forbidden Jungle, the fourth game in Matt Leacock's Forbidden series, players cooperate to escape the jungle of a hostile planet by exploring and manipulating tiles and avoiding dangerous aliens. It's a cooperative tile exploration and action point game of low complexity weight, plays from 2 to 5 players in about 45 to 90 minutes. It was designed by Matt Leacock in 2023 and published by Gamewright. Players begin by choosing a starting difficulty level on the threat meter, either novice, normal, elite, or legendary, and then choosing a scenario setup card which specifies the layout of the face-down jungle tiles and the initial alien eggs, hatchlings, and adults. Different scenario cards are also rated for difficulty. Lastly, players either choose or are randomly assigned a player role from 6 different roles, each with a special ability and a number of maximum health points. Place all player pawns on the starting spaceship tile. Players take turns playing clockwise. On each turn, a player performs up to 4 actions, which include moving orthogonally, flipping your current tile to explore it, which requires it be free of any creatures or webs, removing an alien creature or web on your current tile, and operating the machine illustrated on your current tile. Machines on tiles include the configurator, which lets you move one tile on the board to an adjacent location, the destruct switch, which allows you to destroy any tile and any creatures on it, and a compeller, which lets you move creatures on a tile to an adjacent one. Other tiles include tunnels, which you can travel between, an electrifier, which kills all creatures that walk onto it, and nests and portals where new creatures can emerge. Some tiles show gears, which let players draw unique and powerful equipment cards when revealed. Equipment cards provide powerful unique abilities and can be shared between players on the same space. They do not require an action to use. After taking up to 4 actions, players draw a number of threat cards according to the ever-increasing threat level. Threat cards come in several varieties. Some cause new creatures to emerge from different tile types. Some cause alien adults to spawn eggs, or eggs to hatch into hatchlings, or hatchlings to grow into adults. Some threat cards cause the creatures to move between tiles according to patterns on the edge of the tiles, after which adults attack. Others cause adults to spin webs between tiles, which must be removed before players can move or flip tiles. One threat card will cause the lowest numbered tile to be destroyed. And lastly, 2 threat cards will cause the threat level to increase, one of which causes a reshuffling of the discard stack, which then gets placed at the bottom of the draw deck. To win the game, players must manipulate the spatial arrangement of the tiles so that 4 face-up crystals surround a portal tile that contains no aliens, and then gather together on the portal and activate it. Players lose the game if they ever run out of creatures or web tokens, max out the threat level, or if any player runs out of health points.
Okay, Forbidden Jungle is a fairly inexpensive game like other games in the series, and it has some fantastic components, as Gamewright usually does. This time you're getting a bunch of minis for these aliens and things, which is really pretty cool. However, I think I should point out that there are some issues with the graphic design of the game, as well as the components. One of which is that you get these wonderful aliens that are supposed to stand up, and they don't stand up, they just sort of fall over, which seems like a pretty big miss. Also, people that have a problem seeing and have sight problems, the icons on these tiles that you use to move, they're very hard to differentiate the black and yellow pieces, which are, it may take you an extra 10 or 15 seconds per tile. Seems like a bit of a miss. There's another graphic design strange piece on this chart as well that can lead to some questions, as well as some rules issues that we found in the book that are a little bit. There's both some that Matt Leacock has come out about and also on the forums, but also some that haven't really been answered yet. So it's a little bit of a weird thing for a game, right? Which usually they make things pretty simplistic and family friendly.
Yeah, So let's talk a little bit about the theme. You've mentioned these miniatures that look very evocative. You've got eggs turn into hatchlings that are like these larvae, and you're like, oh, I can walk by them. That's nothing bad's gonna happen. Then all of a sudden, you get the card that hatches them into these big, giant, towering creatures. It's the thematics and atmosphere is fun, and you're exploring. Of all of the games in this series, this is the one that feels to me most fun to actually play. And these things are walking around the table, and you're like, well, I'll just hang out near him, I'll probably be safe. And then all of a sudden they move and attack. It's fun. And the setting is fun. Everything about this, for me, if you look at the whole series, this is the one that I enjoy the most in terms of being in this world.
So in general, and especially for this series, this is a very challenging cooperative game. It's the most challenging, I think, in this whole series. It also plays a little longer than the other games. It comes in about an hour and a half, and I think it has a little bit more randomness than we're used to in this style of game. I think it can snowball a little bit, either in your favor or against your favor, depending on how you play, but that can lead to some interesting strategic decisions to try to counteract that.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that. One of the interesting things here with this game that's different is now we've got a bunch of different scenarios. They're not that different, but they're different layouts of the board, which really could change the way you could play it. And what's also interesting is they're ranked by difficulty. So in addition to this dial that you can make where you start out on easy, normal, and hard, and we would suggest for experienced gamers, like, play these games on a difficult level. You should be losing most of the time or a good chunk of time. But the fact that there's this additional dial that changes the nature of the game, the layout, and the difficulty is a nice improvement on the series and adds some variability to the game.
So the choices, that's what I find most exciting about games, is having interesting choices, interesting strategies, short-term, long-term tactics and things. And this game definitely has that. There's some different paths you can take, like, hey, let's try to do this more this game, or let's try to do that more. And it has what I really appreciate in most games, which is when most great games is when you talk about something and you're like, hey, here's my plan, here's Jesse's plan, and then we take some Frankenstein version of both. Because everything is like the tyranny of small decisions. Even saying like, hey, should I kill the spider, or should I kill the hatchling, or should I kill the egg? There's reasons you might do both. You got to look in the discard and decide, like, maybe there's some nuanced way of like making each better or worse than the other. So there's a lot to like a lot of satisfying crunchiness going on in this game about the small decisions on the tactical level, but then also the major strategies, which also kind of leads you to be able to be like, this game I want to kind of use the tile that destroys thing a bunch, or you want to like maybe try to explore really fast, and it kind of like leads you into these different ways of playing, which I think is really kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean, it almost feels like in some ways there's a little bit of a sandbox game here where you could really try very different strategies, and it's such a clean, elegant design. You're like, I could break the game by doing this, and you're like, oh no, there's a card in there that's designed for that, and it's so streamlined in terms of there's a small deck of events, and so, but you know you're going to go through all of them, so you can really work out like this is more likely to happen. This. And we didn't say, but we recorded a full playthrough and a big long discussion that you might want to watch. But if you watch our playthrough, on almost every turn, we're like, well, could we tweak a little bit off by doing it a little bit differently? And those are the games we love the most. And you said the thing that to me is the thing that brings me the most joy with these kinds of games, which is you've got turn by turn tactical decisions you argue about, but you could also reason about the larger strategy. And that's what we did when we played these games. Like, why don't we try the strategy of like avoiding exploring because these bad things happen? And there are more little dials of interaction, snowballing, chain effects in this game than I can remember in the series, and that is fun.
Yeah, I think like this game has a lot of that push pull, and like we really love the idea of like there's the small problems and fires you have to put out, but there's the overarching winning of the game, and those are two different modes you have to be in, and you always have to decide which you're going to switch into. How often are you going to kill these things, or when are you going to move towards like actually winning the game? And that changes a lot. And you know, we come up with a strategy, and then you say, okay, stop. We're now going to go into a different mode, and you switch that.
I love that decision. That decision of when to switch to the race for the finish, and you know, whatever happens.
I also think this is like I try to break games a lot and think like, let's try this strategy stuff. And I think Leacock, who's one of our favorite designers, has maybe our favorite designer, has really, like, you can see in this design evolved quite a bit using pieces of the other games in the series, and also kind of like when you think like let's try to break it in this way, he's come up with a solution to sort of like stop you from doing that.
It's fun.
And it's I think from a game design perspective, there's a lot of interesting things here that I think if you like to design games or whatever, there's a lot to chew through on that as well.
And tying mechanics and theme, you brought up a point in our longer review that I think is worth saying. This game is designed to have this finale that's exciting and dramatic, and it may have a little bit of downside when it comes to swinginess, but there's a fun end to this game.
Forbidden Jungle is an easy recommend for me. I think it's a fantastic game. It's got a lot of great choices, a lot of great strategy and tactical decisions, and also there's some fun like, hey, I love pulling that switch and blowing up tiles, and I think it'd be super fun to try to like break the game or try to completely oddball, wacky strategies. There are a few, like I said, graphical problems and a couple issues I had there, and the characters I don't think are as interesting as they have been in other games, leading to that replayability. But it is super fun, super thematic, like and one of the best of the series.
Yeah. The only thing I would add to that really is that if you're looking for a cooperative game and you have no experience with cooperative games, you're completely looking for a gateway game, I do think you'd probably be better off starting with Forbidden Island, the first game in this series. It's just simpler, more cut down, and still fun. But when you're ready to ramp up, it's hard to get better than this. This is, as you pointed out, it's not just got all of the strategy and thinkiness and debate, but the fact that it's so enjoyable, just the process of it is so enjoyable, makes it an easy recommendation, especially if you can get it at a good price.
So check out our playthrough if you like, and we have a very exhaustive review as well that we really go into a deep dive. You probably don't need to listen to that, but it's there if you want to. Otherwise, we'll see you on the next episode.
You're watching Co-op for Two. I'm Jesse. I'm here with Greg.
Thanks for having me on your table.
This is our quick before you buy it.
I made a joke.
What